She's 8 years old, sitting at the kitchen table. Her mother is crying again. Her father isn't home. She's learned that if she stays very still, very quiet, if she doesn't ask for anything, the tension might pass and nobody will break. So she does her homework perfectly, silently, becoming the good child, the easy one, the one who never causes problems. There's a child you probably know. Maybe you were that child, the one everyone called so mature for their age, the helper, the peacekeeper, the one who held everything together while quietly falling apart inside. What no one told you is that this gift wasn't a gift at all. It was a survival strategy wrapped in a smile. And what you're about to hear may finally explain why, no matter how much you achieve, a part of you still feels unseen and strangely empty. When a child is born, they arrive raw and undefended, a bundle of sensation and need. They do not know language, they do not know strategy, they only know the feeling of safety or danger in their tiny nervous system. Safety for an infant is not about locked doors and full refrigerators. It is about emotional connection. It is about whether their cries are met with arms, whether their eyes are met with eyes that actually look back. It is about whether someone can sit with their sadness, tolerate their anger, and allow their neediness without punishment or withdrawal. Some children come into a world where this kind of attunement is present. The parent is not perfect, but they are available. They are responsive, regulated, able to mirror the child's experience. Those children slowly absorb a life-changing message. I can be as I am and still be loved. My feelings are allowed, my needs matter. They do not have to earn their place. They simply exist, and existence is enough. But other children are born into a different emotional climate. The house may look fine from the outside. There may be food, toys, school, holidays, photos that seem happy. But inside that home, the emotional atmosphere is unstable, unpredictable, or quietly absent. Maybe the parent is depressed and lost in their own darkness. Maybe they are narcissistic and see the child as an extension of themselves. Maybe they are overwhelmed, traumatized, or simply so self-absorbed that they cannot see clearly into the inner world of their son or daughter. They might not intend harm. They might even say and believe that they love their child. But love without attunement does not land. It does not register in the nervous system as safety. The child, long before they have the words to describe any of this, begins to feel it. The room changes temperature when they cry too long. The air grows tense when they're angry. They notice that their parent softens when they are helpful, but shuts down or explodes when they are messy, loud, or needy. Without understanding how or why, the child starts to track every little shift. They become exquisitely sensitive to tone, facial expression, the heaviness of footsteps coming down the hall. Their body is a radar, scanning for signs of danger, for hints about who they are allowed to be. One day, a 4-year-old boy falls and scrapes his knee. He runs to his mother, tears spilling down his face, his little body shaking. She is on the phone, stressed and distracted, and without looking at him, she snaps, "You're fine. Stop making such a fuss." The words land like a slap. He freezes, swallows his sobs, backs away. The next time he falls, the pain feels the same, but he does not cry. He has learned something far more important than how to walk without falling. He has learned that his pain is only acceptable when it is silent, that his need is allowed only when it is invisible. This is the moment the split begins. The child makes a decision, not with language, not consciously, but deep in the primitive layers of the brain and body. I will become what they need me to be. On one side of the split is the real self, full of impulses, feelings, desires, anger, tenderness, and spontaneous need. On the other side is the adapted self, the version of them that keeps the parent comfortable, the version that minimizes risk. The tragedy is that many of these children are brilliant at this adaptation. They learn to read emotional cues like a second language. They anticipate moods, soften conflicts, patch over awkward silences. They sense when a parent is about to break and they step in with a joke, with helpfulness, with silence, with perfection. The adults around them are impressed. "You're so mature," they say. "You're such a good helper. I don't know what I'd do without you." The child glows briefly under the praise, because praise is the closest thing they have to love. But somewhere inside, a quieter voice whispers, "They don't know me. They only love who I pretend to be." And so the hiding begins. The child learns to translate everything that might upset the adults into something more acceptable. Rage is turned into quiet compliance. Sadness is turned into productivity and competence. Fear becomes a meticulous perfectionism. Longing turns into caretaking, into being the strong one, the stable one, the reliable one. Their inner world does not disappear. It is pushed down, locked away in some basement of the soul, a place where no one is allowed to enter, including themselves. At 10 years old, they lie awake in bed and listen to their parents fighting downstairs. A glass shatters in the kitchen. Their mother's voice rises, sharp and shrill. Their father's voice drops, heavy and dangerous. The child's stomach knots, their chest tightens. Every cell wants to cry out, to run downstairs, to beg them to stop, to hold on to someone. But they have already learned the rules. Crying makes it worse, needing makes it worse. So they hold perfectly still, counting their breaths, trying to make themselves disappear into the mattress. The next morning, they get up before everyone else. They pour cereal for their younger sibling, pack lunches, help with shoes and backpacks. At the breakfast table, they smile politely, pretending not to notice the swollen eyes, the tension in the jaw, the way no one meets anyone's gaze. And the adults are so grateful. "You're such a responsible child," they say. "You're our little adult." But they are not an adult. They are a frightened child performing adulthood, because the actual adults have abandoned their posts. The world keeps rewarding this performance. Teachers praise the child because they are so well behaved, so diligent, so self-motivated. Friends lean on them because they are always available, always listening, always giving advice far beyond their years. Parents brag about them to relatives and neighbors. "She never causes trouble. He's so easy. They're just naturally mature." The child learns that being good means erasing their needs, that being valuable means being useful, that being loved means taking up less and less space. On the surface, this looks like success, but under the surface, the cost is mounting. The real self, with all its untidy feelings and unmanageable needs, has been exiled. It has not died, it has gone underground. It paces in the basement of the psyche, pressing against the locked door, waiting for a chance to be let out. The longer it is denied, the more pressure builds. The gifted child grows up. They go to university, build a career, enter relationships. From the outside, they often look impressive. They work hard, achieve, excel, hold things together. They are the colleague who stays late to fix the crisis, the friend who always picks up the phone, the partner who anticipates needs before they are spoken. People describe them as strong, capable, unshakable. They are the one others turn to in storms. But inside, a different story is unfolding. Achievements start to feel oddly empty, like swallowing something beautiful made of cardboard. Compliments slide off because they are aimed at the mask, not at the face behind it. Intimacy feels confusing, even threatening, because love never actually met the real self. It only ever met the performance. And so, in quiet moments, unsettling questions begin to rise. Who am I when I'm not helping anyone? They wonder. Who am I when I stop achieving? When I'm not the reliable one? When I'm not the strong one? They begin to suspect that the person they put forward in the world is not the whole of who they are, and maybe not who they are at all. This is the beginning of the awakening, and it often does not come gently. Imagine someone in their mid-30s who has just received a promotion they have been working toward for years. In the office, there are congratulations, handshakes, maybe even a little celebration. They smile, thank everyone, say all the right things, but as they stand there, a strange hollowness opens in the chest. Beneath the surface of pride and gratitude, there is dread. This new role means more responsibility, more pressure, more expectations, more proof that their worth is bound to their usefulness. Rather than feeling joy, they feel like a prisoner whose sentence has quietly been extended. They leave early, claiming fatigue. In the car, away from eyes and expectations, the mask slips. Their hands grip the steering wheel, their throat tightens, and suddenly tears come. Not the tidy tears they allow in conversation, but hot, chaotic, relentless sobs that seem to come from somewhere very young, somewhere very old. It feels for a moment like something inside is dying. And in a way, something is. This is the collapse of the false self. The persona that once kept them safe, once earned them praise, once organized their entire life, begins to crack under the weight of its own impossibility. You cannot stay exiled from yourself forever without paying a price. At some point, the cost becomes too high. The body starts sending stronger signals: exhaustion that rest cannot fix, depression that no achievement can lift, anxiety that no amount of control can soothe. Relationships repeat the same painful pattern. They find themselves always in the role of caretaker, therapist, fixer, never the one who gets to be held. In that collapse there is terror, because if I am not the helpful one, the successful one, the strong one, then who am I? If I stop performing, will anyone stay? Will anyone want me if I am messy, angry, needy, confused? For the gifted child, now adult, these are not abstract questions. They feel like questions of survival. Once, as a small child, they literally depended on being pleasing to receive attention and care. The nervous system remembers this, even when the conscious mind does not. And yet, beneath the terror, something else is surfacing. Beneath the performance, beneath the persona, there has always been someone waiting. The parts of the self that were once judged as too loud, too intense, too sensitive, too needy, have not disappeared. They have been waiting behind the curtain, watching, hoping for a moment when it might be safe to come forward. These parts do not speak in clean sentences at first. They appear as sudden anger that feels disproportionate, as grief that seems to have no clear cause, as a longing so vast it is hard to name. They show up as tightness in the chest, as a weight in the stomach, as dreams that carry forgotten scenes from childhood. This is what people call the inner child, and it is not a sentimental idea. It is a way of describing the frozen pockets of memory and emotion that were too much to process at the time they occurred. The child who sat at the kitchen table trying to be invisible. The child who dried their own tears in silence. The child who learned to soothe a raging parent instead of being soothed. Those children still live in the body of the adult. They are terrified of being abandoned again, and yet they are desperate to finally be seen. Healing for the gifted child is not glamorous. It does not look like suddenly becoming calm, wise, and endlessly compassionate. It often begins with something far less impressive. Stopping the constant drive to be useful. Stopping the automatic habit of managing everyone else's emotions. Stopping the reflex to turn every feeling into a task, a project, a self-improvement goal. When the performance pauses, all the feelings that were held back begin to arrive. There is grief so deep it can feel bottomless, for all the years spent being what others needed instead of who they were. Grief for the hugs that never came, the words they never heard, the presence they never felt. There is rage at having been placed in adult roles as a child, at being praised for the very adaptations that cost them their sense of self. There is loneliness, the kind that comes not from being alone in a room, but from having never felt met, even when surrounded by people. The impulse, especially for someone highly adapted, is to turn this healing into another performance, to do it perfectly, to read all the right books, say all the right affirmations, execute the correct practices, to hurry through the pain and arrive at the healed version of themselves as quickly as possible. But that is the old pattern in disguise. Real healing asks for something much more unsettling. To stay with what is painful without trying to fix it immediately. To sit with one's own tears without silencing them. To allow need to exist without rushing to justify it. This is the slow work of reparenting, not the aesthetic version where self-care looks pretty on social media, but the deep, repetitive act of turning toward one's own experience with curiosity instead of judgment. It is learning to say to oneself the words that were never heard from an adult. Of course you feel this way. Of course this hurts. I'm not going anywhere. It is choosing again and again not to abandon oneself when feelings become intense, not to minimize one's own pain because others had it worse, not to translate every emotion into productivity. Over time, something begins to shift almost imperceptibly. The parts of the self that were once labeled too much are seen in a new light. The sensitivity that once felt like a curse is recognized as the root of deep empathy and creativity. The intensity of feeling that once seemed shameful becomes the source of rich inner life, of art, of insight, of real connection. The capacity to sense the emotional states of others, once used only to protect and manage, can slowly be used in relationships that are mutual, where care flows in both directions. As this shift continues, the gifted child, now adult, starts to experiment with a new, quietly radical belief that they do not have to be extraordinary to deserve love. They test it in small ways, like saying no when they would usually say yes, or allowing themselves to rest when there is still work to do, or admitting I don't know instead of having the right answer. Each of these moments feels risky, but each one sends a new message into the nervous system. I can be less than perfect and still be here. I can have needs and still be worthy of connection. The external world might not always applaud these changes. Some people, especially those who benefited from the old performance, may be confused, disappointed, or even angry. You've changed, they might say, and they are right. The person who oriented every decision around others' comfort is slowly orienting towards something else. Truth, integrity, inner alignment. The old contracts, made in silence and fear, are being renegotiated. Yet, alongside any losses, new forms of connection become possible. When the gifted child stops performing and starts showing up as they actually are, messy, tender, uncertain, real, they create the conditions for true intimacy for the first time. Others can finally see them, not just admire them. People who are drawn only to the performance may drift away, but those who stay and those who arrive are drawn to something much more solid: presence. The very thing the gifted child was always longing for and never quite received now becomes something they can participate in and co-create. One day, perhaps in an unremarkable moment, this long process becomes clear. Maybe they are washing dishes, or walking down a familiar street, or lying in bed before sleep. There is no dramatic soundtrack, no one else in the room, but something inside feels different. There is a sense of being on their own side, of not needing to constantly monitor themselves, of being allowed to simply exist. The inner child who once hid in the basement of the psyche is closer now, sitting nearby rather than locked away. There is still fear sometimes, still old pain, but there is also companionship. They are no longer leaving themselves behind. At this point, it becomes evident that being gifted as a child was never really about talent in the usual sense. It was about an extraordinary capacity to adapt to a painful environment, to read emotional nuances, to carry burdens that were never theirs. That adaptation once kept them safe. It was not a flaw, it was a brilliant survival strategy for a small person in a big, unpredictable world. But what kept them safe then is what keeps them trapped now, unless they are allowed to outgrow it. The work then is not to reject the gifted child, but to free them, to remove the pressure to perform, to let their creativity, their sensitivity, their depth exist without being twisted into a shield or a tool, to allow that original, spontaneous self, the one who laughed too loud, cried too hard, wanted too much, to step back into the light and be met with something they have always deserved and rarely received: steady, non-contingent love. If you find yourself somewhere in this story, still performing, just starting to crack, sitting in the messy middle of feeling everything you once pushed away, or slowly discovering who you are without the mask, know that none of this means you failed. It means your old way of surviving is making room for a new way of living. The person you had to become to endure your childhood is finally stepping aside, just enough, so that the person you were always meant to be can begin to come home.